Hey, if you're a chiropractor and you have your own practice and you're trying to build a business, you're trying to grow, you're trying to earn an income and really create a sustainable business that's going to serve you in the biggest way, then this is for you. Hi, I'm Dr. Colin Elk, and I've been in private practice for over 30 years, and I now coach chiropractors on how to create successful practices and turn them into viable businesses, something that's going to serve you, something that's going to be able to scale, create a great income to serve you over the long term. Welcome to our three-part video series on how to scale your practice and consistent metrics on things that you should be measuring on a regular basis that will give you an indication on how successful and how healthy your practice is as a viable business. Let's get started. We're going to start with something that we call LTV, lifetime value. Now, what is lifetime value? Well, lifetime value is what an average patient, when they come into your office, will spend over their lifetime in your office. Now, this is an average number. This is not an absolute number. This is a number that's going to give you some sort of metric that you can measure on a month-to-month basis to see how healthy your practice is and if you are growing. It also gives you the metric that now you can say, if I can calculate what a new patient is worth to me, now I know what I can spend from an advertising perspective or my acquisition expenses on how to obtain new patients and make it profitable. And we're going to talk about that. So first of all, what the average patient will spend over a lifetime in your office. Well, to calculate LTV or to calculate lifetime value, you take the total monthly collections over the total number of monthly new patients that come into your office. So, and that what we like to do is take that on a month-to-month basis and say, let's at least take 3 months to give us a good relative number. Ideally, you want to do this month-to-month over the course of a year to give yourself a good average over time. So how to calculate that? Well, let's just say, for example, our office is collecting $30,000 a month, and we're averaging 30 new patients over the course of that month. That's what's coming into our office. So if we do the calculation and divide it out, then that would mean that a new patient on average is worth about $1,000. And again, this is a relative number because some new patients are going to come in and not convert and not start care. Some new patients are going to come in and stay for years and years of care, and they're going to increase the value of LTV. But this gives you at least a relative number. So $1,000 per new patient is a relatively healthy number. Now, let's say, for example, you're offering higher ticket care plans, or perhaps you deliver services that are going to bring in more money, or a stack of services, perhaps chiropractic adjustments plus decompression or plus soft wave or plus nutrition or weight loss services. And one new patient may purchase a couple of those different types of programs and add to that LTV value. So let's say, for example, you're collecting $60,000 a month and you still have 30 new patients, then that would bring the LTV up to $2,000 a month. And that's a sign of a healthy practice. Now, for those of you who have an LTV, once you do the calculation, that's less than $1,000 a month, that probably means that you need some changes to your system. In other words, your care plans you might not be charging enough. Perhaps patients aren't staying as long. Perhaps your conversion rate is very, very low. You might have 30 new patients show up for their day one, their new patient exam, but only a very small percentage of them actually start care. So your overall monthly collections are low. Thus, your LTV becomes very, very low as a result. On the other hand, if you have a very strong maintenance or wellness practice and patients are coming in over the long term, not because they have symptoms, just because they want to be part of your community or part of the culture that you've created in your office, then your LTV might be very high. Maybe you have a low number of new patients, maybe 10 or 15 new patients, but you're collecting $50, $60, $100,000 a month, in which case the value of a new patient might be $3,000, $4,000, or $5,000 as a result of that. That's the sign of a strong, healthy, wellness-based practice. So now part two of our equation, once we've calculated the LTV or the lifetime value of a patient, now we can calculate the cost to acquire a new patient. Now, what is that? Well, if we calculate all of the total marketing expenses, so in other words, if we're doing some online advertising, perhaps Facebook or Google ads, we calculate how much we're spending in ad spend. We calculate if we're paying an agency. If we have extra labor costs, for instance, a staff that's spending extra time calling those leads or appointment setting for us, we have to calculate that. And then there, of course, is the personal time, especially if we're doing other forms of patient acquisition, like going out and doing talks, whether it's lunch and learns, maybe we're doing some other form of screening to get patients in the door. So these are all things that we have to calculate in our acquisition costs for a new patient. So we take our total expenses for the month divided by the number of new patients that come in the door, and that gives us our CANP, our cost to acquire a new patient. So for example, if we spend $1,500 a month on ad spend, to Facebook, if we spend $1,500 a month to the agency that's running our Facebook ads, and let's say we spend another $500 a month in staff costs for doing extra calls or staying extra time, or maybe even taking those calls home in the evening to do calls to prospective leads or new patients to actually get them booked on the schedule, then let's just say that adds up to $3,500 in the month in expenses or an investment to marketing expenses. And let's just say in that month, we get 35 new patients. Well, that would mean that if we've spent $3,500, we've acquired 35 new patients just for ease of calculation. Therefore, our CANP would be $100 per patient on the books, per patient in the door. So that would be the calculation for a new patient to actually enter your office and have a new patient exam. So part 3 of our equation is ROAS, which is return on ad spend. So now we've calculated our LTV, which is our lifetime value of a patient. We've calculated our cost to acquire a new patient. And now we're going to calculate the return on the ad spend. So if our cost to acquire a new patient, for example, is $100, if our LTV is $1,000, then therefore our ROAS, or return on ad spend, is 10 to 1. That's an extremely good return. I mean, ideally, we would shoot for a 5 to 1 return, somewhere in that neighborhood. Even a 4 to 1 return is good, but anything above 4 or 5 to 1 return on ad spend, you're doing very well. You're getting new patients in the door. So therefore, if we know our cost to acquire a new patient and our value of a new patient, and that ratio comes out to 5 to 1 or greater, then if we want to scale our office, we can confidently say that what we're doing in marketing, whatever that is, whether it's outreach, screenings, lunch and learns, online advertising, whatever that is, it's working. So we can scale things very well. And if we want to have, 40 or 50 or 60 new patients in the month, we can reverse engineer it and say we need to spend this amount of money to acquire that number of new patients, but it's going to turn out profitable. So looking at LTV, this can be a sign as well to say that if my LTV is very low, that again requires me to put some time and effort into training my staff so that we can obviously get new patients in the door more effectively. We can convert those new patients into care plans and get them to stay in our office for a longer period of time. And it can also give me a sign to say that perhaps my procedures need more patient education systems. In other words, maybe I should implement some re-examinations. Maybe I should have a time where I can actually sit down and go over the patient's initial exam findings, to go over any objective measurements that I made, like an X-ray measurement or like a postural change, or maybe it's a neurological scan, to show them those results, maybe on the 6th, 7th, 8th visit, 12th visit, to remind them of the underlying problem. Because what happens is patients stop care when they get out of pain. If patient has an expectation that they're going to get out of care in a certain time frame, and we have not addressed that, or given them an objective measurement to guide them, to keep them under care for a longer time, if they think that they should be out of pain at a certain time, again, they're going to stop care because they feel perhaps in their mind that chiropractic didn't work for them. So this is a really good metric to keep in your office because it can help you to determine how healthy, how successful is my office, and am I doing the things necessary? Am I putting the systems in place to create retention, to increase that LTV, that lifetime value of a patient, to help them to understand why they need lifetime or long-term chiropractic care and keep them under care for the long term?